Namaste. Today we are going to see why Europe is so insanely well designed. And the thing is, we have seen how everything is so symmetrical and everything is so beautiful when you look from the top in of every European city. Like that's how those good those shots are. If you see of Barcelona, if you see of all the other cities, those all short shots looks mesmerizing. But if you see like many Indian cities too, like in that you will see that there are no patterns out there. But in Europe, you see that there are well patterns. Like it was like the city was built with a proper design. And so I think so. This question will be answered in this video only. So let's see.
And if we talk about India, so I do think that there are very few cities who are well designed. Like Chandigarh is well designed city, and like if we talk about Bangalore, so Bangalore is also well designed city. But there are also many cities like Delhi, Mumbai. They are not well designed, and but we all know that how beautiful the Europe is. If we talk about the London, the Paris, Chicago, these cities are so beautiful and they are so well designed. But today we will get to know that how if they became the if these cities become so large today and well designed today, so what is the reason behind it and what are the people whose efforts is behind it? So yeah, I'm so much excited to see this video, so let's watch the video.
It will be very interesting to know why and how are they so insanely well designed. So let's start the video.
This is a map of Europe's mass transit railway system across 33 countries. The yellow lines indicate the presence of a train line, and as you can see, it's very dense. There are hardly any spaces where there isn't any coverage for railways. Now, if we compare this to a map of railroad tracks in the US, it's a different story. While parts of the US have some good mass transit, there are large areas of the country which isn't covered by Amtrak, the nation's largest passenger railroad service. But let me show you another map, this time of high-speed rail in Europe. Now obviously, high-speed railways aren't going to be as common as regular speed railways as they require excellent design, strict planning and massive investment. And yet, as we can see, high-speed rail is present in Europe, which is a stark contrast to the US, as you can see from this map. While the US does have some higher speed rail, like the Aquila line in the Northeastern Corridor, it's hardly an effective map of transport solutions. And the Aquila line isn't really that fast either. It can reach about 150 miles per hour, but averages less than 70. This is not the case for Europe's insanely well-designed railroad system. And you have to remember that Europe's system accomplishes this while spanning 33 different nations in a very diverse continent. And I know what you're probably thinking. This is just because Europe is smaller than the United States, which simply isn't true. While the European Union is smaller than the US, continental Europe has an area that is about 1.04 times as much as the US. So we can dismiss this argument that the United States can't be that well designed because it's too big. Europe simply is better designed. But if you're American, you might not understand why railroad tracks or public transport as a whole is so important. I mean, driving a car works fine, right? Well, no. And Europe showcases why a primary focus on private transportation is so detrimental to a well-functioning transit system. Look at these maps. They show the US road network versus the EU's. And as you can see, the EU's road network is not nearly as impressive as the US's. And yet, when you look at some of the most congested cities in the world, European countries don't feature particularly prominently in the global rankings. This is pretty shocking information because you'd assume that the country with a more expansive road network has a lot less congestion, especially considering the United States has devoted lots of time and money to their highways. So how come Europe is less congested when they have fewer roads? Well, it all comes down to disincentivizing the use of cars and, most importantly, making an attractive alternative. Europe does this by having both private and public transportation infrastructure, which technically the US has as well. It's just
Yes, recently my friend went to European countries and she was like, wow, like everywhere there were trams and trams go to each and every place. She was in Switzerland. She was saying like, I have to go to my from my hotel to this place. So she was like, I was like, how would you go? And she was like, okay, there are trams there. So everywhere in India, if you have to go via a taxi or an auto rickshaw or something you have to take on. But she was saying that a taxi is considerably, not like evident, or not, you cannot see any taxi out there on the roads. And like, how is that possible? And like, people, even there are many people who don't drive only because the tram system is so efficient. Like, there is a tram going on after every 1 or 2 minutes, and they reach each and every destination, that you don't feel like taking your car and then going away. I thought like, wow, this is how a public transport should be built.
Yes.
And like, this is something that the world needs to learn from Europe.
A lot worse. But on top of this, Europe makes it pretty expensive to buy, own and use a car. This is achieved by having high taxes on vehicles and gasoline. In fact, here's a map of worldwide gasoline prices. As you can see, European nations are in the top rankings, while the US lies at the bottom, charging very little. But let me be very clear, it's only a good idea to make it expensive to drive a car if you have an attractive alternative, which America doesn't, but Europe does. I mean, obviously this wouldn't work in the US with its current transportation infrastructure, but in Europe, this is a great strategy because you make the roads less congested for those who actually need them and give everyone else an affordable and efficient alternative, being Europe's amazing public transport like the trains on the railways. This is arguably the better strategy because even though the vast majority of Americans have access to vehicles, at around 91%, and gas is comparatively cheap, it still leaves 9% who don't have access to vehicles. What are these people who can't afford a car supposed to do? I mean, sometimes public transport isn't even an option or simply too expensive for many. So you've now actively excluded those who aren't exactly the most well off from society. To make matters worse, some US cities actually got rid of their public transport to make room for more cars. I'm not joking. American streetcars like trams were actually removed to make way for bigger roads. Absolutely
my God,
insane. Compare that to Oslo,
regressive
Berlin
step.
and Madrid, where discussions are underway to restrict or even exclude most cars from the city center. And let's not forget that when you have cars, you also need somewhere to park them. And this is where things start to become rather ridiculous. You see, the United States has 2 billion parking spaces for 250 million cars. That's 8 parking spaces per vehicle. In Europe, it's pretty much a one-to-one with around 250 million public parking spaces for 300 million cars.
Like, I have to just mention that, okay, for India, this is not a problem because we can just park anywhere.
Yeah.
But to emphasize the ridiculousness of this even further, the area that the US dedicates for car parking is actually larger than the area dedicated for housing people. It's honestly unbelievable that people are being squeezed out of American cities due to regulators wanting to make more room for parking spaces. This simply wouldn't fly in the EU, as it has a whole policy dedicated to improving urban planning. See, the EU spent 115 billion euros between 2014 and 2020 to improve city design by making it smarter, greener, and more connected. Simply meaning they allocated funds to make their cities
Europe
more
is on
efficient,
another
more
level.
connected, and better for the environment. And better for the environment they really are, as the average resident in a typical Western US city, such as Los Angeles or Phoenix, contributes approximately 6 times more carbon to the atmosphere per capita than an average European city resident. This is purely the result of not having effective transport solutions, which saves resources and allows people to move about efficiently. And exactly that, moving about efficiently, is something most of Europe's citizens are able to do as a result of the European Union. See, most of Europe's nations are in the European Union, which gives the EU citizens a number of perks, which includes a free travel area. This has been one of the most important achievements of the EU, as it makes it possible for an EU citizen to travel freely to other EU member states and stay for up to 3 months. All they need is a passport or even just an ID card. No visas, no trips to embassies, no form filing, just head straight over. This makes it incredibly easy to travel, study and work in other countries and communities. And having this level of centralization is very important to good design, as it gives the smartest people the opportunity to work where they are most useful. And since good design obviously requires a lot of complicated problem solving and planning, this is very smart. Another smart thing is the incredible biking infrastructure we see in Europe, perfectly illustrated by this map of bike path density in Europe. All the purple lines are bike paths, and there's clearly a lot of them, especially towards the left side of the map, but that's just because this is the home of the Dutch, the Netherlands. Now, the funny thing is, I won't be able to compare this to a map of bike path density in the United States, because such a map hasn't been made. At least I wasn't able to find any, and I can only wonder why. But anyway, What Europe and also the European Union has achieved is pretty remarkable, as it's hard to think of another set of such diverse countries where you would be able to travel so freely, in an efficient and inexpensive manner. I mean, you can literally get from Paris to Amsterdam, for example, in just 3 hours for around $30.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to travel all over Asia without any border crossings, checks or visas,
Such
and being able to
lovely
stay for
thing would be-
months at a time. That would be truly amazing.
Yeah.
And let's not forget that European design has always been distinctive and very successful. In fact, the continent's history of design and interconnectedness serves as a model for the rest of the world. But even though Europe and the EU are pretty great and have amazing infrastructure, they obviously aren't perfect. And I'd love to hear some of the reasons it might not be, so leave a comment down below if you have some thoughts on this. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
What an informative video it was, and seriously, after watching this video I'm starting comparing India with the Europe, because in India, as we all know, the public transport is not that much good as compared to the Europe. We also got to know that Europe is well designed country, because firstly it doesn't require any visa to travel the world, and secondly we got to know that the travel is very cheap in Europe. And it also gave us an example that if you want to travel, basically he took the name of the cities, and it required 3 hours of traveling, and it just cost you around $30. So I do believe that's in Indian rupees it's just for 3,000 rupees, and we have to say that it's very cheap. We also got to know that there are a lot of parking in the Europe, and people don't have to suffer a lot, but it's not same in the it's not same in our country. Like, we have to suffer a lot because we are not as much developed as the Europe. But I hope in the future our country will also get so much developed just like Europe. And I hope that in future in India too the traveling becomes so cheaper as the Europe has. So yeah, I really like this video.
And actually the thing is, like, as far as India is concerned, India is also building a lot of big highways. India is kindly going to the route of, you can say, European sorry, I could say US route. India is also building all those roads and highways, new swanky highways. But I always feel like, okay, we are building those highways, but those are only for cars, but we are not building the similar kind of thing, like the European thing, and building interconnectivity among people. Like, okay, there are a lot of metros. Like, metros are also becoming a lot popular in India, and like you will see all these cities like Jaipur, Surat, and all these cities are doing work on metro system. But I think so metro also like takes you to a particular station only, but with trams and everything, they just take you to anywhere in your city, and with that it just ensures you higher connectivity. Because with metro, even we see that metro takes you one place, and then also you have to take a taxi or auto to your home or to your workplace. So it just still keeps on increasing the same thing. And so I feel like India should work on that too, because we are going the US route, and US route is just filled with cars, and also like, because Indians can relate to US people a lot, because we do love our cars, and we do like owning a car is a very big thing. And like how in US 91% of people have a car. I think so India is very far away at this point of time, but India also will try to reach that kind of number only. While I would think that we should also focus on European model also. So what do you guys think about it? Do let us know in the comment section below. So do like, share, and
Subscribe.
bye.